Is it time for a transmission fluid change on your Honda Civic? If so, you can easily address this in less than an hour in your own garage. Today on Obsessed DIY, I'm going to show you how I did a drain and fill on the transmission fluid in my daughter's 2013 Honda Civic LX. First step was to get the car off the ground so you could easily access underneath the car. In my case, I have a set of Rhino ramps that I use for car maintenance. Rhino ramps are very easy to use, very sturdy and strong, and will easily support the car without having to use jacks or jack stands. So here I'm aligning the ramps with the front wheels of the car, and I'm using some rubber floor mats to keep the ramps from sliding out from underneath the tires. It's a very easy process to get the ramps aligned, and the rubber mats, again, ensure that the ramps don't shoot out from under the tires as you're driving up the ramps with the car. Other tools that you'll need, you likely already have. The transmission fluid is very easily accessed from underneath the car once you gain access to the drain plug. So here I'm driving the car up on the ramps, paying careful attention to keep one foot on the brake and one foot on the gas at the same time, such that you don't surge forward during the process of driving up the ramps. So here I'm creeping up the ramps very slowly. As you crest over the top of the ramps, you can feel the tires hit the stops. At that point, put the car in park, pull the emergency brake, and you're ready to go. Another safety tip is you could use chocks on the back end of the car if you were actually physically working on something that would jar the car around. However, in this case, all we're doing is breaking a drain plug loose and draining the fluid out of the transmission. So next, you need to gather up the necessary tools, get the hood open, and in this case, all you need is a 3/8 inch ratchet of some type or a breaker bar. Next, I go and get a light so it's easier for me to see underneath the car. It's just a simple shop light that allows me to illuminate the underneath of the car. It also helps with some of the videoing that I'm going to do. You also need a drain pan to hold the fluid, probably some paper towels to clean up the mess, and again a 3/8 inch ratchet or a 3/8 inch breaker bar. In my case, I'm going to use a 3/8 inch breaker bar that I believe is about 11 inches long. Here's a quick look of the car up on the Rhino ramps and the necessary tools that I gathered to do the job. Once you get underneath the car, you do have to remove the very flimsy metal skid plate. This skid plate is attached via 4 screws that are Phillips screws to the underneath side of the car. Be careful with these screws as they're screwed into plastic, and you can easily strip the plastic. Once you get these screws out, just set them aside, and then you can easily grab the skid plate and push it towards the rear to take it off. Once the skid plate is set aside, you can gain access to the square drive drain plug for the transmission fluid. Here you can see it. It's right at the front of the car on the right hand side, and it's a round bolt with a square drive. Any 3/8 inch extension or 3/8 inch ratchet or 3/8 inch breaker bar will fit into the square drain plug, and then you can break it loose. I will warn you that this screw is on very, very tight, and it takes an extreme amount of pressure to break it loose. Here you'll see me struggle just a little bit with it, but once you give it a good firm pull, it'll break loose. See there, I was pulling very hard. Once it's loose, you just simply spin it out just like an oil drain plug, and the transmission fluid that's in the pan will flow out into your drain pan. Again, this is a drain and fill, so you're not going to get all of the fluid out of the transmission. You're only going to get what's in the pan out. Typically, it's about 40 to 50% of the total fluid that's in the car. The fluid that's in the torque converter will not drain out, but you will get at least 40 to 50% of the fluid out. Here you can see the drain plug. It's actually got a magnetic tip on it, which grabs any metal or fine metal shavings that might be in the transmission. Just take some paper towels and wipe that off and get it cleaned up to prepare for once the fluid is drained and you can put it back in. Takes a few minutes to get all the fluid out. Again, typically you'll get about 2.5 to 2 3/4 quarts of fluid out of the pan, and I believe that's about 40 to 50% of the total fluid that's in the transmission. Once the fluid stops draining, you can put the plug back in and be sure to tighten it up. Make sure you inspect the plug well, both the metal O-ring that's on the plug and make sure you wipe off the magnetic tip to get all the debris off. Here I'm just putting the plug back in. I'm going to clean up a little bit. You will have fluid that leaks down onto the plastic undercarriage parts there. It will tend to flow all over the place. So you have quite a mess to clean up here. However, most of the fluid will drain right out into your drain pan. It's only when the fluid slows down that it starts dripping all over the plastic underneath the car. So I spend a few moments here cleaning this up, and then it'll be time to tighten up the drain plug. Looks like I got my mess cleaned up. Put my breaker bar back into the drain plug and tighten it up. You don't have to gorilla tighten it. I don't know why on earth they have it so tight from the factory. But you can tell as you get it tight that there's enough pressure there that you don't want to break it or strip it out. An extension might actually help here, but I didn't grab one. All right, once you're done with that, go up top side, and then it's time to fill. I used a makeshift funnel because I didn't have one long enough to go down in there. And then I used Honda DW1 automatic transmission fluid. This is the fluid that's recommended for the car. Almost no one recommends using aftermarket transmission fluid. Everyone recommends using the Honda stuff, which you can easily pick up on Amazon. So I filled it up. It actually took 2.5 quarts to get it full, just over 2.5. And here you can see the yellow dipstick, and that's also where you fill the transmission fluid as well. So pull the dipstick, fill it through the dipstick hole, and then check the level with the dipstick when you're done. So after that, you can go back down bottom side, and I put the skid plate back on. Again, 4 Phillips head screws. Be careful with them, don't strip them, and just get them snug. After that, we're done. It was as easy as that. It actually probably took me 30 minutes to do this, but I also changed the oil at the same time, so I didn't show that footage in this video. So next, you want to take the car back off the ramps, or if you have it on jacks and jack stands, get it down level so that you can accurately check the level with the transmission dipstick. Here, I just pulled the car off the ramps, got out and got the ramps out of the way, and then I checked the level via the dipstick. Turns out, I think I put about 2.5 quarts in. I was just a hair low, so I actually ended up adding another 1/4 quart to the car. I did actually, I don't know if this is required, but I did actually pull the car forward and in reverse, such as to try to warm up the transmission a little bit, because you are supposed to check the fluid while it's hot. So I went back and forth in the garage, changing gears from forward to reverse several times in order to try to get a little bit of heat in the fluid. I suppose the correct way would have been probably drive it around the block, maybe a mile or so, to get some heat in the transmission. But here I'm just cleaning up my mess. I did manage to drop a little bit of the transmission fluid on the floor. Got that cleaned up. I believe you're going to see me go backward and forward a little bit. If not, I was moving the transmission between reverse and drive. And I pulled it back in, and then I was done. So again, very easy to do this. They provide a drain plug. I know years ago on cars, there was never a drain plug. You have to actually pull the pan off the bottom of the transmission to get the fluid out. In this case, they provide a very handy drain plug. Even though it's gorilla tight, it was fairly easy to get off. And the whole process here took, I'm pretty sure, less than 30 minutes to get done with standard tools that you should already have in your garage. All right, once you're done with that, there is one more step that you have to do. Assuming that you were getting a maintenance notification that the transmission fluid needed to be changed, you need to go in and reset that maintenance notification. So you just go to Vehicle Information, Maintenance Info, and you'll see right there, you see transmission oil. So you go through each one of those notifications and acknowledge those, assuming that you took care of the maintenance that was required. In this case, I did an oil change and I did the transmission fluid change all at one time. So I cleared those codes, and we were off and running. Process complete, job DIY complete.